Hey, what's cracking? Today I'm going to be talking about guitars and some smart buying practices and decisions when you are looking for one for yourself. I'm going to try to pack in as much information as possible in as short a video as possible, so I'm going to try to be pretty concise because I have a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of experience buying, selling guitars. This video is not trying to get you to spend money, it's actually trying to help save you money, save you from the hassle of buying something that you're not going to be happy with. So I've got some notes to go over. I'm going to have a whole bunch of guitars of my own that I'm going to show you. And I know this video is going to make a whole bunch of people mad, but it's also going to help a whole bunch of people, hopefully. That is ultimately the goal, is helping people. So let me know down in the comments if this video was helpful to you. I think my main point in this video is that I have found through buying guitars for myself, buying guitars at the music store that I work at, the sweet spot, the best bang for the buck zone is between $300 and $600. Now I know that sounds really, really low, and that automatically excludes stuff like pretty much every Gibson, every Japanese or American made Fender, pretty much all PRSs except their SE series, and a lot of higher end Ibanez and Schecter and other guitars like that. But that's only if we look at brand new prices. If we look at used prices, then we see we can get a bunch of really solid like Fender Mexican Stratocasters or PRS SE guitars, or even some pretty high-end Ibanez guitars from a few generations ago. But in my experience, the $300 to $600 range is where you're gonna get most of the value for your instrument. You're gonna get 90% of the way there. And of course, there are going to be some exclusions to this. There are $600 guitars that play like garbage and $300 guitars that play like Jesus. And I'm holding one of those $300 guitars right now. We'll get to this one later because this is big in part of a talking point that I have, but let's go over new versus used. I would highly recommend getting a used or B-stock guitar instead of a new guitar. The biggest reason is going to be price, because if you buy a brand new guitar that's $1,200, there's probably a used mint condition one for $1,000, and that saves you $200 immediately. Now that's not going to be the case for every price point. Sometimes if you're going pretty low on the price, like around $300 or $400, might only save, $50 or $100 going used, but that's still a lot of money that could be invested in another upgrade for the guitar, like some better tuners. And another good thing about buying used is that a lot of times, because there was a previous owner of the instrument, it's already been set up properly. This isn't always the case. Some people buy instruments, never play them, don't set them up, and then resell them. And sometimes you can get those where you buy a used instrument and it is totally not set up properly. But a lot of the times when you're buying something used, that means somebody's already played it. A lot of the times when somebody buys a guitar, at least if they're knowledgeable, they will either set it up themselves or have someone professionally set it up. So that is a big advantage to buying a used guitar, is that a lot of the times it's already set up. Whereas if you get something from the factory, you're probably going to have to adjust a lot of things like the intonation and the action and the truss rod. And some guitar companies are much better at this than others. Some have really excellent setups right out of the box, so you can basically just plug and play. And other ones are terrible, where you have to set up the entire guitar just to get it in playing condition. Another good thing about buying used guitars is that you can support local sellers, like local music shops and private sellers that are on Reverb, just a random dude trying to sell a guitar. It's going to be way more beneficial to those local businesses and small sellers on Reverb individually than buying a new guitar from Fender or Gibson will ever be. Of course, with used guitars, you have to watch out for a lot of stuff. There are people that mistreat their instruments. There are people that mislabel the condition of their instrument. There are people that don't take good enough photos, and there are more flaws than you think there are just looking at the listing. And we'll get into how you can avoid this in just a second here. So to sum that all up, I would recommend buying used whenever possible. And I also briefly mentioned B-stock, and it's kind of a weird thing. It seems like everybody has a different definition of what B-stock can be, so it seems like it's almost like a blanket term. But I've seen it used to describe guitars that were sent to the customer brand new, they opened it, didn't like it, just didn't want the guitar anymore, and sent it right back. I guess that qualifies as B-stock, although that's also technically open box. Sites like Reverb don't have a specific condition rating for open box, so that's probably what a lot of people tend to list guitars as is B stock. Also falling under that category are guitars with cosmetic flaws. If you get a guitar that's out of the factory, brand new, but has like some specks or some chips in the paint somewhere, often those will be photographed on the listing, or maybe like one of the frets is slightly higher than another, or maybe there's like a chip somewhere. It's never gonna be anything that really completely destroys the playability of the guitar. It's something you can usually work out or just live with. In the case of it being a fret, you could file it down or have someone professionally file it down if you're unsure of how to do that. It could be something where the frets just weren't finished properly, so they're really scratchy, in which case having a set of fret erasers on hand is just an absolute lifesaver. And you should really have those anyway. I think if you're buying used and you're saving a bunch on the cost of the guitar itself, you should invest that extra amount that you would have spent on a new guitar in stuff to maintain your guitar, stuff to clean it, stuff to polish the frets, everything like that. Okay, next up I wanted to go over buying online versus in-store. I love buying online because it's very convenient. You don't have to talk to anybody, you don't have to see anybody, it just gets sent right to your house. But the thing with that is that when you are buying an instrument that you are physically playing and needs to feel good to play, you're gonna want to try it out before you buy it. The main thing you're looking for in a guitar is not how it sounds, it's not what it looks like, nothing like that. It's always how does it feel? Does it feel like an extension of your arms, of your hands, your fingers? Does it just feel like something that naturally you want to play? Does it inspire you to make stuff or play stuff? You can make a guitar sound any way you want just by putting different pickups in it, putting a different set of tuners in it, putting a different set of strings on it to tune it differently. And there are a lot of places that refinish guitars, so even if it's not something that looks like what you want, you can usually make it look like what you want it to look like. So that's the big thing, is testing it out before you play, because you need to have that feel. And that's why I recommend going into a local music shop where they let you try out a bunch of guitars. Even if you're gonna go buy one online, even if you don't buy one in store, I would recommend trying to find a guitar that is similar enough to the one that you're wanting to buy online that you will know what it's going to feel like. Because you might think, say, a Les Paul sounds really good, it looks really good, but maybe it doesn't feel that good. Maybe you go into a store and play a Les Paul and you're like, wow, this body shape, totally not my vibe. But you're not gonna know that until you try it, and you need to try that before you buy it, because if you buy something that doesn't feel right, it's not gonna make you wanna play it. And I already mentioned this before when talking about what brands to buy from and buying used versus new, buying at a local music shop instead of something like a Guitar Center. Guitar Center is a big corporation, doesn't really care about whether you're happy with a guitar, whether you're satisfied with it. The money doesn't go to a local source going towards making that specific shop keep running. Buying from a local music store is always the way to go, and if possible, if there are any even remotely near you, I would highly recommend going to one of those instead of something like a Guitar Center. And then mentioning buying from a private seller versus a reseller. So something like a Guitar Center or a local music shop will be a reseller. That's something that will sell used guitars. Whereas a private seller would be an individual, so somebody who has a Reverb account that they're just selling their own private collection, or somebody who's listing it on some local source like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or something like that. And the good thing about a reseller is that usually when it's somewhere like a music shop that has a luthier, these guitars will be set up before they even go out on the floor. And if you have any problems with it, you can always take it back to that store and have them work on it and make it feel exactly right to you. And that's another thing we're gonna go over in a little bit. But the advantage to buying from a private seller is that the prices will often be lower because someone's not trying to make a margin on the product. They're just selling something from their own collection. So you really gotta pick your battles, just have your options available. And I already briefly talked about this, but I really want to emphasize this, but ask questions before you buy guitars. If the seller doesn't have all the details in the listing, you can ask them. Ask them what the scale length is. Ask them how the neck feels, what the profile is. Ask them what pickups are in there. Ask them if they bought it new or if someone else used it before them. Ask them how they're gonna ship it to you, whether they're gonna use a gig bag or a hard case, whether they're going to use a single box or a double box. What shipping method they use is also a huge thing, so always ask questions when you're buying online. And if you're in person, then it's even easier to ask questions. Ask if the guitar has been set up. Ask the last time they played the guitar. Ask if they do maintenance on the guitar, if they moisturize the fretboard or clean everything else off. And if you're buying in person, test the guitar, plug it in, see how it feels, see how it plays, see if it even works. And for that matter, do your own research on the guitar. There are so many fan pages for so many brands of guitars that you could look up any particular model that you're looking at and have all of the specs instantly readily available to you. You could know when the production was, what the history on maybe the different bridge types of the guitar were. You can know everything about the guitar before you even buy it. And then while you're researching your guitar, look up some less expensive alternatives. If there's like a premium S-style Ibanez guitar that you're looking at, maybe look at the more standard range S series. Oftentimes that $300 to $600 range is really where you're going to get the most value from what you're looking at. I've seen this talked about many times, and a lot of the time, a lot of the cost of the guitar, sometimes even a majority of the cost of the guitar, is the finish. So you're not even paying for extra playability, you're really just paying for the finish of the guitar sometimes. Another thing, this is a big reason why I pulled this guitar out in specific, because I wanted to talk about checking out smaller brands as opposed to more mainstream brands. So if you're looking at like a Fender Telecaster or something, maybe look to something a little less well-known like a Harley Benton. They have some really great options that are fantastic quality for the price. Easily 3/4 the quality of a, say, Fender Mexican Strat for 1/3 of the price. This guitar here is insanely high quality. This is from a brand called EART. I've done videos on their guitars before. I have a review of this specific guitar on my channel. And this guitar has really crazy premium specs. It has a poplar burl open pore top. It has a 24 stainless steel fretboard. It has a really beautiful 5-piece neck and a mahogany open pore body. This guitar feels and sounds amazing to play. The only 2 upgrades I've done to it are the pickups for a little bit higher output and the locking tuners for better tuning stability and easier restringing. And those are upgrades that cost me $250 total. And this guitar, the original specs rival a lot of really premium models from really mainstream guitar brands that cost 4 times as much, because this guitar cost me $300 brand new. And the reason why I bought it brand new is because there were no used ones available. So that is one case where you would basically have to buy brand new. But this guitar plays amazingly well. It feels so good to play. And there are guitars that I've tried, American Fenders, Gibsons, that don't play as well as this, that cost $2,000. And that doesn't mean that a $2,000 Gibson wouldn't do it for you. That just means that maybe trying out more options is going to be better, because then you might find something you actually like. The thing you actually like might be an American Strat or a really expensive PRS guitar, but you don't know until you try all your options. So I would highly recommend checking out smaller brands like Harley Benton and EART and so many more that make really high quality and affordable guitars. And when you're checking out a smaller brand, a really important thing to do is check out the reviews, not only on the brand itself, but the individual model of the guitar. Because some brands like Harley Benton have pretty good overall reviews and really excellent reviews on some guitars, but they really just miss the mark on several of their models, and you're only going to know that by looking at the reviews. So you don't want to buy a guitar that doesn't meet quality standards of the people who bought it, even at a really inexpensive price. You're going to want to read the reviews before you buy, because sometimes the guitar just isn't worth it. Sometimes the quality isn't there, or the feel isn't there, or there are other issues, and you really only know that if you read the reviews for the guitar. So that is really important before you buy really any guitar, but most definitely more inexpensive guitars from lesser known brands that don't have that reputation. I've tried products by Harley Benton, I've tried them by EART, like I've said, I've tried a bunch of Ibanez guitars, a bunch of Fenders, a bunch of Epiphones and Gibsons, I've tried a couple PRS guitars, I've tried a couple Charvels and Jacksons, and I'm gonna give you a list of some of the best guitars I have ever played right on screen right now, so you can see the ones that really resonated with me. And because we're looking at my guitars right now, I want to bring out two very, very different guitars that I own currently. One of which you'll notice was not on that list that I just showed on screen. So this is a guitar that I got for $50 at a music store that I work at. It's called Metronome Music in Tucson. I highly recommend you check it out. They have a bunch of cool guitars, but that's not the point. This is a guitar that I got for less than $50. It's from a totally unknown company to me before I checked it out, called Lotus. And apparently this guitar is from the 90s. It is obviously a copy of a Stratocaster. The finish isn't super high quality. It has chips in it. The pickguard that I got it with was completely warped. The bridge is not super comfortable. The bridge is a really basic Strat style tremolo bridge. The output jack was totally messed up. The tuners were absolute garbage, and it had the worst plastic nut I have ever seen in it. But I put about $200 worth of upgrades in this guitar, being these Dragonfire rail pickups, this loaded pickguard with all new electronics, some locking tuners, and a Graphtec graphite nut, and then also a new back plate on the back just for aesthetics. And then, as you'll notice, I have a fret wedge there on the top just to mute the strings above the nut so that you don't get all those annoying sympathetic vibrations. And this guitar has the most unexpected mojo to it. It has a weird neck that's kind of a really strange, like, square shape. You can't really see it from here, but it's like weirdly thick and kind of squared off. But it just has so much mojo. It makes me not want to put it down. It just plays so well. The upper strings are a little buzzy due to just the nut being a little funky. The action is really good, and the pickups sound phenomenal. The bridge is not the most comfortable thing around, but it'll do. But man, this guitar just makes me not want to put it down. It sounds good, it plays fantastically, and it just has a character like nothing else I own. So why am I showing you this guitar when this is not something that you could buy on your own? This is something you would have to put so much work into. Well, there is a point to this. I also have this guitar, which was not on the list that I just showed you not a couple minutes ago of the most favorite guitars of mine that I have ever owned. This is a super high market value Ibanez S540 from the late 90s. On paper, this guitar is fantastic. It's got 22 frets, it's got HSS pickup configuration, it's got a Floyd Rose bridge, it's got the really, really nice Ibanez tuners. The neck is just razor thin and great for shredding. The body is thin and light and so comfortable. And the pickups sound really, really good in this model. So why is it not on my list of guitars that I really like? Because it doesn't have mojo for me. And that is entirely a me thing. That is a subjective thing. To the next guy I hand this guitar to, it could have all the mojo in the world. It could make them want to start shredding again. But for me, at least, this guitar does not have the mojo I was looking for. And I think for me, that's really because of two things: the neck and the bridge. Everybody who knows me, who I've talked about playing guitar to, knows that I hate Floyd Rose bridges because, yes, they stay in tune better than any hardtail I've ever played. Oh my God, are they such a pain to tune in the first place? And God forbid you want to change tunings. It is the most painstakingly long process ever. And the neck honestly just doesn't do anything for me. A lot of people really, really rave about really thin necks that you can shred on. And I guess I'm just not a shredder. To anyone else, this neck would probably feel fantastic, but to me, I just can't do it. I like guitars with kind of medium to thick necks because I'm really a chords guy. I like playing rhythm guitar, and playing on something so thin, I feel like I have nothing to grab onto. But for someone who's sliding up and down the fingerboard, shredding a whole bunch, that's great. They can just glide up and down effortlessly. But to me, this guitar has no mojo. And that's exactly why I wanted to show both of these guitars to you, because one of them has all of the mojo and none of the tone or the specs. and this one has all the tone and the specs and no mojo. And that's subjective. Like I said, that's just for me. For someone else, this could be their favorite guitar. This could be the exact thing they're looking for. But you don't personally know until you play it. Whatever someone else says about this guitar having all of the feel and it feels great to play, that's for them. That's not for you. So while it might be the best guitar they've ever played, it's probably not the best guitar you've ever played. An instrument that you're playing physically, you know, where you're extending your hands and your arms and it's, you know, setting on your body, it's so subjective because everybody has different feels. Everybody has different things that they like out of an instrument. And sometimes it's not as simple as looking at it and thinking, that's the right shape, that's the right thickness. It's just going to feel good. You don't know that until you pick it up and play it yourself. If I really don't like this that much and I'm going to end up selling it, what did I buy to replace it with? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is an Ibanez SAS 36 FM. On the used market, it is worth a third as much as the last guitar I showed you, and it has infinitely more mojo to me. It's still one of their S-style guitars, although this is from the SA series, so it has a flat back like a normal guitar. So it's a little bit thicker, but it has the arched top that I find very comfortable. It has the much more manageable SAT Pro style bridge that is just a normal non-locking tremolo bridge and no locking nut up here to deal with. It has the same number of frets. It has the same pickup configuration, albeit with different pickups. This has a really unique true duo bucker, which is 3 pickups in one. It's 2 stacked single coils and a humbucker all in one. But specs aside, this guitar, it just feels better to play. The neck is thicker and more round, so playing chords feels so much better. The weight distribution of it and the feel of the contouring is just better to me. The bridge is so much easier to work with on this guitar than a dumb Floyd Rose bridge. And I'm just saying they're dumb from my perspective. You might really like them, and that's fine. Because truth be told, they stay in tune like crazy. And you can do crazy dive bombs and flutters and all of the tremolo tricks, and it will handle them amazingly well. Better than any non-locking tremolo ever could. And it'll stay in tune the entire time. But I'm just not about that stuff. I don't have that style of playing to justify having a double locking tremolo bridge. That is such a pain to tune. So this $500 guitar has significantly more mojo than that $1,500 guitar does. But that's in my opinion. That's for me. So I'm going to repeat myself. Play the guitar before you buy it. It might not have the mojo. It might have the mojo. You just don't know until you play it. But this $500 guitar that suits all of my needs fits really well within that $300 to $600 range. And so do almost all of my other guitars. There's only one other guitar that I own that doesn't fit within that range, and it's my Ibanez SIR 27 FD. But I got it used where I paid within that range for it. You gotta look for deals. You gotta try to find something within a price range that makes sense to you. I personally find it very, very hard to justify buying a guitar that is over $600 because I feel like most of that quality and almost all of the mojo, if not all of the mojo, could be had with something significantly less. So, in conclusion, look for guitars that have the feel and the vibe that you need. Whether that's a $200 guitar that you bought off Craigslist or a $2,000 guitar that you're buying brand new, it doesn't really matter. But the value is going to be where you place it. Aesthetics have never really mattered that much, and tone can be solved by a simple pickup and string swap. But feel and mojo is always where it's gonna be at, and that can be had for as much money as you want to pay for it, whether that's $50 or $5,000. So try to buy used, always test out the guitar before you buy it, go for mojo and feel, not specs, and if you think the guitar is going to make you a better player, you're probably wrong. Guitars have different purposes. Some of them have hardtail bridges and some of them have tremolo bridges. Some of them have shorter scale lengths that make it easier to play certain riffs. Some of them have neck through body designs that make it really easy to access higher frets for shredding. But none of them are going to make you a better player. The biggest thing of them all is that the guitar you have is probably just fine if it was set up properly. A great setup can completely change how you think about your guitar. If it's set up poorly, it's gonna play like garbage. A $2,000 guitar set up poorly is going to play like absolute crap. But a $100 guitar set up by someone who knows what they're doing is going to play amazingly well. So the guitar you have is probably just not set up properly if you are looking for something different. And that's speaking from experience. That $50 guitar was kind of bad when I got it. Not to any fault of the people who set it up or to any fault of the company who built it. It was wear and tear. It was an inexpensive guitar to begin with. The parts that were in the guitar didn't allow for it to have a good enough setup to be good to play. But that's okay. That's why guitars are modular the way they are. They're designed for you to change things out in. You can swap a couple things and set up a guitar and it'll feel amazing. So you might not need to spend that much or any at all to get the perfect guitar for you. And that's the point of this video. Spend less money, spend more time setting up and getting to know your instrument. And that is how you get a guitar to feel great to play. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this didn't cause too many of you outrage. I just hope it helps you realize that maybe you don't need to spend so much money to get a good instrument experience. Honestly, this doesn't even just go to guitars. This extends to every instrument. To a certain extent, you can make a cheap instrument play really, really well if it's set up properly, maintained, and has a couple really good parts in it that are easily swapped out. And I say to a certain extent, there are some absolute garbage instruments out there. And believe you me, I have seen a lot of them. I've seen some pieces of crap that I do not ever want to play again. And that's not just a matter of mojo, that was a matter of them being built like garbage, not maintained, and just not set up to play. So thank you for watching. Let me know down in the comments if this video was helpful to you. Maybe suggest some other things that you didn't see in this video. Other people, look at the comments, see what people down there say are their good buying practices. We're all just trying to be helpful here to whoever is not as experienced in buying guitars or is looking for the next thing that's going to make them want to start playing again. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay safe. Peace.